My name is Rachel, and for the last 3 years, I've been watching my husband James slowly slip away. When we first found out he had stomach cancer, it felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. James was only 40 years old, doing well in his job as an investment banker, and we had a sweet 10-year-old son named Paul. We thought we had many happy years ahead of us. The only small comfort in this nightmare was that James's good income meant we could afford the best treatment possible. We flew to different specialists across the country, tried new therapies, and did everything we could, no matter the cost. But as time passed, it became clear that the treatments were only giving us more time, not a cure. Through all of this, James's parents, Lauren and Brian, were always there for us. They lived just 15 minutes away and helped without being asked. "Rachel, we'll pick Paul up from school today," Lauren would say on days when James had treatments. "Don't worry about dinner either. I made extra lasagna." At night, Paul would sometimes pull on my sleeve while I tucked him into bed. His eyes were full of worry and hope. "Mom, when is Dad going to get better?" he'd ask. I never knew how to answer that. How do you tell a child that his dad is dying? So I would just stroke his hair and say, "The doctors are doing their best, sweetie." My own parents, Christina and Jacob, were a different story. They lived just as close as James's parents, but it felt like they were miles away. "Mom, can you pick up Paul from school today? James had a bad reaction to chemo, and Lauren has a doctor's appointment," I asked one day. "Oh, Rachel, I'm really sorry," my mom replied. "But we promised to help your sister with apartment hunting today. You know how Jacqueline gets when she's stressed." It was always about Jacqueline. That's how it had been my whole life. When I was 7, my parents didn't come to my school play because Jacqueline had a cold. At my high school graduation, they left right after the ceremony to go to Jacqueline's dance recital, even though she was just part of the group and not the main dancer. Over the years, I got used to being second. James became my real family, and his parents treated me more like their daughter than my own parents ever did. So when James's health got worse last month, I prepared myself for the end, surrounded by the people who truly cared about me. The night James died, I was holding his hand. His breathing had slowed down hours earlier, and the hospice nurse had told me it wouldn't be long. "Rachel," he whispered, his voice barely there. "Take care of Paul. You're the strongest person I know." Those were his last words. I sat there for hours, still holding his hand as it slowly turned cold. I couldn't believe that the man I had spent 13 years with was really gone. Lauren and Brian, James's parents, came to the hospital within an hour after I called. Their faces were filled with the same pain I was feeling. "We're here, sweetheart," Lauren said as she hugged me. "We'll always be here." That night, I sent a message to my mom. "James passed away tonight." An hour later, she replied with just 2 words. "That's terrible." No phone call. No asking how Paul and I were. No offer to come over and help. Just a short message. But I was too numb to care. There was a funeral to plan, a son to comfort, and a broken life I had to somehow put back together. The days after James's death felt like a blur, making funeral plans, signing papers, and trying to explain to Paul that his dad wasn't coming home. Lauren and Brian helped with everything. They made the phone calls when I couldn't speak and sat with Paul when I didn't know how to answer his questions. I felt like I was drowning. The funeral home needed answers about the service, relatives were calling asking for directions, and I still had to pick up a suit for Paul. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours at a time since James passed away. "I need to ask my parents to watch Paul," I told Lauren as we sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by sympathy cards. "You and Brian are already doing so much." I drove Paul to my parents' house, practicing what I would say. When we got there, my mom opened the door wearing a jacket and holding her purse. She looked like she was ready to leave. "Rachel, this isn't a good time," she said, not even inviting us in. "We're just heading out." "Mom, please. It's only for a few hours. I need to finish everything for the funeral," I begged. "We've had these plans for weeks," my dad added, stepping beside her. "We can't cancel now." Before I could say anything else, they both stepped outside and locked the door behind them. "We really have to go," my mom said firmly. "I'm sure you can find someone else." They walked to their car and drove off without even saying goodbye to Paul, who stood there quietly, hurt and confused. I called my friend Isabella, who immediately said yes to watching him. After I dropped Paul at her place, I couldn't help myself. I drove past my parents' house on the way home. Their lights were on, and Jacqueline's red Mazda was in the driveway. So that's their big plan? I muttered, letting out a bitter laugh. They weren't busy. They just chose to spend time with Jacqueline instead of helping me. Again. That evening, I sent a message in our family WhatsApp group. James's funeral is at 10 a.m. on Saturday at Greenwood Chapel. There will be a small reception afterward. I saw the read receipts appear next to my parents' and Jacqueline's names. No one replied. The night before the funeral, I was so anxious that I called my mom directly. Mom, you saw my message about the funeral tomorrow, right? It starts at 10. There was a short pause. Oh, Rachel, I'm sorry, she said. But we can't come. Jacqueline made a lunch reservation at Emilio's to celebrate her promotion. It's at noon, and we already said we'd be there. I almost dropped the phone. Mom, this is James's funeral. James, the one who helped pay to fix your roof when it caved in 4 years ago. James, who's been part of our family for over 11 years. That was a long time ago, Rachel, she said coldly. We need to focus on the living, not the dead. Jacqueline needs our support right now. Before I could say another word, she hung up. I quickly called Jacqueline, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief. Hey, she answered, sounding annoyed that I was bothering her. Jacqueline, Mom told me you're having a party tomorrow at the same time as James's funeral. Can't you move it, or at least delay it a little, so they can come to the service first? No way, she said with a laugh. I can't change the reservation now. Everyone has already confirmed, and this promotion is a big deal. It's not like I can just move a funeral or whatever. A funeral or whatever? I said, my voice rising. Jacqueline, my husband is dead. James, the man who paid for your entire college education. That was a long time ago, she replied. Look, my promotion is more important than some funeral. People die every day. Then she hung up. I stood in the kitchen, holding the phone, completely shocked. A moment later, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my mom. Stop pressuring your sister. Her celebration is more important than a funeral. She's worked hard for this promotion. The day of James's funeral was sunny and bright, which felt like a cruel joke considering how broken I felt inside. The service was simple and beautiful, just the way James would have wanted it. He never liked big, showy things. The small chapel was filled with people who truly cared about him, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and most of all, his family. During the eulogy, I spoke about how kind and generous James was. I talked about how deeply he loved Paul. Paul sat between Lauren and Brian, holding their hands as he cried quietly. After the service, many people came up to me to say kind words and offer support. A few of them asked where my parents were. I was surprised not to see your folks, said one of James's old college friends. Are they not well? They had something else planned, I said coldly, not wanting to explain. Lauren noticed how uncomfortable I was and quickly changed the subject, guiding the conversation away from my parents. That night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the living room surrounded by sympathy cards and flower bouquets. The house felt painfully quiet without James. The silence hurt. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Jacqueline. Hope the funeral went okay. Mom posted pictures from my party. I got promoted to senior account executive. No sympathy. No mention of James. Just a message about her party, filled with smiley faces and celebration emojis. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone and went upstairs to check on Paul. He was fast asleep, holding the teddy bear James had given him for his last birthday. I climbed into bed next to Paul, finding comfort in the sound of his soft breathing. For the next week, I felt like I was walking through a cloud. Everything felt heavy and blurry. Lauren and Brian came by every day. They brought food, took Paul to the park, and helped me go through James's things. My own parents didn't call. Not once. They didn't check on Paul, and they didn't ask how I was doing. Nothing. A week after the funeral, I got a phone call from James's lawyer, Mr. Eric. "Mrs. Turner," he said kindly, "it's time to go over James's will. He made very careful plans. Would tomorrow afternoon work for you?" I agreed and called Lauren and Brian to come too. James had included them in the will, and I knew he would want them there. The next day, Mr. Eric arrived at exactly 3 p.m. He carried a leather briefcase and had a serious look on his face. But when he saw Paul, his expression softened. "Your father talked about you all the time," he told Paul, gently shaking his small hand. "He was very proud of you." We all sat in the living room, me, Paul, Lauren, and Brian, ready for the reading. I didn't expect anything surprising. James and I had talked many times about what he wanted, so I thought I knew everything already. But just as Mr. Eric was about to begin, the doorbell rang. "Are you expecting someone else?" Lauren asked, looking confused. "No," I said, just as puzzled, and went to open the door. I nearly slammed it shut again when I saw who was there, my parents and Jacqueline, all standing on the porch with fake sad looks on their faces. "What are you doing here?" I asked sharply. "We heard about the will reading," my mother said, trying to peek inside. "James wasn't a stranger to us. We have a right to be here." "A right?" I repeated, shocked. "You didn't come to his funeral, but now you think you have the right to be here?" My father cleared his throat. "Now, Rachel, let's not bring up the past. We're just here to support you." "Support me?" I said with a bitter laugh. "That's a good one." Before I could stop them, my mother gently pushed past me into the house, with my father and Jacqueline right behind her. "We're family," she said firmly, like that gave her permission. I stood there frozen, stunned at how bold they were, walking in like nothing had happened. When we entered the living room, Lauren and Brian's faces darkened as soon as they saw who had shown up. "What are they doing here?" Brian whispered. When I came back into the room, I was shaking with anger. "I have no idea," I said, trying to stay calm. "But I'm not going to cause a scene in front of Paul." Mr. Eric, always professional, raised an eyebrow and said, "Shall we begin the reading of the will?" My parents and Jacqueline sat on the couch across from Lauren and Brian. Paul sat beside me in a small armchair. The room was filled with tension. You could feel it in the air. I, James Brandon Turner, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament, Mr. Eric began, reading from a formal document. James had organized everything with great care. To his parents, he left $300,000 to help them enjoy retirement and to thank them for always being there for us and for him during his illness. "We never expected this," Lauren said softly, her voice breaking. Brian squeezed her hand, holding back tears. Then came the main part. To me, James left our house, 2 city apartments I didn't even know he owned, and $500,000 in savings. "These apartments bring in good rental income," Mr. Eric explained. "James bought them as investments 4 years ago." I sat there in shock. James had planned everything so carefully to make sure Paul and I would be okay, even without him. As the lawyer kept reading, I noticed my mother's face change. She went from looking mildly sympathetic to clearly interested. Jacqueline suddenly sat up straighter, listening closely. When Mr. Eric finished, my mom clapped her hands. "Well, this is wonderful news, isn't it, Rachel? You're quite well off now." The room went silent. Lauren and Brian stared at her, horrified. "I mean," my mom continued, totally unaware of the mood in the room, "with 2 apartments and all that money, you can help the family. Jacqueline's been struggling with rent, haven't you, dear?" Jacqueline nodded quickly. "Yeah, it's really expensive these days. And you've got 2 apartments just sitting there." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. James hadn't even been gone that long, and they were already after his money and property. "You should give one of those apartments to Jacqueline," my father said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "What do you need 2 for, anyway?" I stood up slowly, my fists clenched at my sides. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice shaking. "You skipped James's funeral for a party. You ignored me and Paul for a week. And now you show up uninvited to his will reading, just to ask for his property." "Now, Rachel," my father said in a calm, patronizing voice. "There's no reason to be selfish. You're alone now, but you've got all this money. You should share it." "Selfish," I repeated, my voice rising. "I'm not alone. I have Paul," I said, my voice steady. "And everything James is left is for his future. Every single penny will be used to give him the best education, the best chances in life. Everything James can't give him anymore because he's gone." I looked at my parents and Jacqueline. They glanced at each other, then at Paul, and for a moment, I saw something in their eyes that shocked me, almost like jealousy. "You're being ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Jacqueline needs help now, not some child who won't even go to college for years." "Some child," Brian said sharply. "That's your grandson. And his father just died." My mother's face turned red. "Don't you dare tell me how to treat my own grandson," she snapped back. "We've been in this family longer than you, and yet you've shown no interest in being part of it." Lauren responded coldly. "We've been here every single day, helping Rachel and Paul, while you ignored them." "That's enough," I said, raising my voice and losing my patience. "Paul, can you go upstairs to your room for a little while? Take Mr. Eric with you and show him your model airplanes." Mr. Eric looked thankful for the excuse and quickly stood up. "I'd love to see your collection, young man," he said kindly, taking Paul's hand. Once they were gone and out of hearing range, I turned to face my parents and sister. I didn't hold back anymore. "How dare you walk into my house just days after James's funeral, a funeral you didn't even care to attend, and ask for his money? James worked hard his whole life to provide for me and Paul. He fought cancer for 3 years, and not once did you offer to help. You couldn't even watch Paul for a few hours." "That's not fair," my father started to say, but I cut him off. "No. What's not fair is James's spending thousands to fix your roof when it collapsed during the storm 4 years ago. What's not fair is us paying for Jacqueline's entire college education when you said you couldn't afford it. And now you think you deserve something?" I took a deep breath and looked them in the eye. "Let me make this clear. I will not give you any of James's money or property. Not now, not ever. Every penny will be used for Paul, just like James wanted. That's what will happen." My mother's face twisted in anger. "You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you." I stared at her. "What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Name one thing. One real act of love or support." She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to say a word. "Exactly," I said quietly. "I think it's time for all of you to leave," I said. The door slammed shut behind them, and I dropped onto the couch, completely drained. "You did the right thing," Brian said gently but firmly. "Did I?" I asked. "They're still my parents. Jacqueline is still my sister." "Being related by blood doesn't make someone family," Lauren said as she sat beside me and took my hand. "Love makes a family. Being there during the hard times makes a family." I nodded. I knew she was right, but the hurt of being rejected, something I had felt my whole life, was still there. Later that night, after Lauren and Brian had gone home and Paul was fast asleep, I sat down at my computer. A notification popped up. My mother had tagged me in a post on social media. It read, "Heartbroken that my eldest daughter has become so greedy and selfish after her husband's death. She refuses to help her struggling sister, even though she now owns 2 city apartments and has plenty of money. Money has changed her." I stared at the screen in shock. The comments from relatives and family friends started pouring in, people who had no idea what had really happened. "Don't let Rachel get away with this. Family should always help family. Poor Jacqueline, always struggling, while Rachel has everything handed to her." A wave of anger rose in me like never before. Even for my mother, this was a new low, trying to shame me publicly so I'd give them James's money. I took a deep breath and placed my fingers on the keyboard. If she wanted to share our family's private matters in public, then I was going to share the truth. I began to type. I've stayed silent for a long time, but since my mother has made this public, I feel the need to respond. 4 days ago, I buried my husband James, who died after a 3-year fight with stomach cancer. My parents and sister did not come to his funeral.
Why?
Because my sister scheduled a party for her job promotion on the same day, and they thought that was more important. For those who don't know, James helped my parents many times. He paid for major repairs to their home and covered Jacqueline's entire college education. But when he got sick and I asked them to help, even just to watch our son for a few hours, they always said they were too busy. Yesterday, they came uninvited to the reading of James's will. When they found out he had left money and property to me and our son, they immediately demanded that I give one of our rental homes to Jacqueline, saying, and I quote, "She needs it more than some child." That child is their 10-year-old grandson. He's just a little boy who lost his father. I'm not sharing this to hurt anyone. I'm sharing it because I'm tired of being seen as the bad person in a story where I've only ever tried to be a good daughter, sister, wife, and mother. James's money will be used exactly as he wanted, for our son's education and future. That's it. I hope this clears up the lies. I attached screenshots to the post. One showed my mom's message, where she said Jacqueline's party was more important than James's funeral. Others showed texts where they refused to help during his illness. My finger hovered over the post button for a few seconds. Then I clicked it. Within minutes, the comments on my mother's original post completely changed. Christina, is this true? You skipped your son-in-law's funeral for a party. I can't believe you expect Rachel to give away property meant for her son. Those messages are shocking. How could you say a party is more important than a funeral? Calls and messages started coming in that evening. Relatives and friends were shocked by what my parents had done. Many reached out to support me. My mom tried to comment, saying I was lying, but the screenshots proved everything. After a while, she deleted her post, but it was too late. The truth was out. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls from my parents and Jacqueline. I didn't listen to any of the voicemails. I blocked all their numbers. I didn't want to hear anything they had to say. Over the next few weeks, they kept trying to reach me. They sent emails asking for forgiveness, but still asked for money. They sent messages through mutual friends. They even showed up at our house uninvited. Each time, I stood my ground. I had made my decision. They were no longer part of our lives. They're never going to change, are they? I asked Lauren one afternoon as we watched Paul playing in the backyard. People don't change easily, she said gently. Not deep down, anyway. It's strange, I said. I used to think I needed their love and approval. I spent my whole life trying to earn it. But now, Lauren said, finishing my thought, you know your own worth. And you know Paul deserves better than to go through what you did. 7 months after James's death, life had found a new rhythm. Lauren and Brian were still deeply involved in our lives. They joined us for Friday dinners and helped with Paul's school events. I had started managing the rental properties James left behind. To my surprise, I actually enjoyed the work. The apartments in the city center turned out to be great investments. They brought in steady income and added to the savings I was building for Paul's future. I also used some of the money to invest in shares of companies James always believed in. It felt good to see the money grow and receive steady payments from those investments. As for my parents and Jacqueline, I sometimes heard news about them through other family members. They were having money problems. Jacqueline had lost her job, and my parents were complaining about the high costs of retirement. Every time someone brought it up, they would hint that maybe I could help them. My answer was always the same. I'm sorry they're struggling, but my responsibility is to my son. Some people said I was cold or unforgiving. Maybe I was. But when I looked at Paul, growing stronger, smiling more, and surrounded by people who truly loved him, I knew I had made the right decision. One night, as I tucked Paul into bed, he asked something that surprised me. Mom, do you ever miss Grandma Christina and Grandpa Jacob? I paused, thinking about how to answer in a way that was honest but wouldn't hurt him. I miss the kind of relationship I wished we had, I said softly. But not the one we actually had. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than a child his age should. I'm glad we have Grandma Lauren and Grandpa Brian. Me too, buddy, I said, hugging him. Me too. Some people will never understand why I cut ties with the family I was born into. They've never felt the kind of hurt I lived with, the constant letdowns, the unfairness, the painful truth that some people just can't put others first. But I understood. And more importantly, I had broken that pattern. Paul would grow up knowing he is loved, valued, and supported. He would be surrounded by people who showed their love through actions, not just words. People who were there when it really mattered. People who didn't ask for anything in return.